go a little wider. Brings ball back for Marshall. The footwork. Benji Marshall. Now the speed. The footwork again. Away from Peachy. Passes without looking. Away for Richards. Back to Fitzhenry. That is as good as you will see.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Tragics Team Fixer, where listeners send through their teams and ask for advice or simply just show off their awesome teams. Tonight with me, we have Glen. Glen, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate.
Yep. Had a good week, mate?
Yeah, I have, mate. I'm still stressing over my team to come, but it's as good as, Teamless Tuesday is upon us soon, but still not sure what I'm doing.
That's right. I'm in the same boat, I think, mate. So, and every podcast needs a token Broncos fan, and tonight we only have the one, finally. Timmy, how you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem, mate. Well, let's get straight to it, guys. As you can see on the screen, we've got a very brave listener who sent their team through, and that's Ben Blanchard. So Ben shared his team with us. We'll just go through and have a look and see what we can do with it. We'll start with the hookers. So Randall and Grant combination. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I like them both. I mean, Randall, we're all going to own based on points per dollar. I mean, he's a cheapie and going to make money. So I think everybody will have him in it. And then it's the base, basically from there where who we choose as our second. And we all know that Grant's the best hooker in the game.
Yeah. How about you, Tim?
Yeah, look, I agree. It's not the strategy that I'm using. I'm going with two cheap hookers myself. But, yeah, Randall and Grant seems like a great way to start. Randall's obviously going to make money like we've talked about. But, yeah, Harry Grant, as Glenn said, best hooker in the game. The only thing you worry about, I guess, is if he's not playing round one, you're losing points there. But you've just got to wait an extra week for him to gain some value.
Yeah, I've had a look at different options in the hooking role at the moment, and currently I've actually got a pretty sneaky pod in there. I spoke to Glenn. I won't say who because I don't think it's me sharing my team. I feel like that's fine. It's more that you guys will all make fun of me, but I'm still very happy with it. But yeah, the only thing I can say that would be an issue there is, say, if you think Grant's going to average, say, an 80 or a 75 a week, and then you miss out on that 75 that week, and then say if another angle could be maybe go on Mahoney that might average, say, 65. That's 10 points less, but you got to make up 10 rounds to get those extra 10 points back from Grant. So you're already like 10 rounds, not massive, but you're 10 points a round behind already. So it is a risky move, but I can't begrudge anyone for doing it because Grant will be a pod in round two. And I think he's going to be around, for Grant, I reckon he'll be around the 15% mark, which is a pretty decent pod for such a great caliber player. Next up, we'll move to the front row. This is a bit of a different one to what we've seen so far. So we start with Payne Haas, and alongside him, we have Ethan Bullimore. And on the bench, we have Max King and Spencer Fainu. I'm not sure which Fainu that is. It's not the Fainu that's in prison, I don't think.
No.
But,
and just full disclosure, he's not in prison yet.
Yeah, okay, yeah, allegedly. So, Glenn, what do you think of this front row, mate?
Yeah, I like Haas. I mean, again, he's gone for the best player in that position. And I don't mind Bullimore, but I think he could be a little trappy. And looking at his second rows, my fear for him is that if you were going to start someone like a Bullimore, I would look at starting somebody in your second row like a Tafita Pangai Jr. or maybe a Tino or somebody, so that if it does go pear-shaped, you're able to move that player up into that position, bring Bullimore back down on the bench as a non-playing player, hoping that he's still made enough in his rolling average to make money for you.
Yeah, when you start off with those risky players, it's always good to have a backup plan, and that's what I do agree with that. Having that Tavita Pangai, a very good option there. How about you, Tim? What do you think of this one, mate?
Yeah, look, he's got Joe Tapine there, and he's obviously dual second row, front row forward. So that obviously fixes his problem if that's the way that he needs to do things. We're not really sure about Bullimore's job security. I'm a big fan of him myself from his days here at the Broncos. So, yeah, I hope he'll have a good season, or I hope he'll have a better season than what he had with us last year. But, yeah, I think his backup move will obviously be to move Joe Tapine up. But then the rest of his bench is still pretty skinny. He's got Moroa and Burbo. So he's going to start running out of a bench really quickly if he's only got if Bullimore goes to his second row bench after round 2 or for round 2 onwards, he's really only got one player there that's going to get some skinny minutes, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. So I don't think this is the year to start with non-playing reserve at the moment. And with Bullimore, I don't mind him for a quick little cash grab. I think he's safely locked into that team. Even when the injured players do come back, I feel as though he will still get about 35, 40 minutes off the bench. But I don't see him being a good second front rower. I don't mind him so much as one of the reserves. But yeah, I do love Max King. Actually, I do. I've got him in my team. I rate him as a player, and it's all about our minutes with him. Hopefully, his minutes are pretty good. But again, Bulldogs have a really good front row at the moment. They've got Vaughan in there as well with Luke Thompson in the middle there. There's some minutes that might be a challenge to get shared around, but I'm hoping he gets some minutes there. And like I said, I don't think this is the year to start with enough. I haven't seen the whole team yet. I'm actually going for this live, and I feel like I'm going to guarantee there's a turbo at the bottom of this because you've got to save the money to get your gun at the bottom there. So we'll move on to the second row. Going pretty heavy on the jewels here. You've got Brennan Smith, who's now been free to play for round 1, which is great. You've got Joe Tarpany, Liam Martin, and on the bench you've got Helam Lukey, Tape Moiroa, and Ben Travojevic. What do you think of that, Glenn?
Well, I'm going to start one at a time here. So I'm going to say I like Brandon Smith a lot. Okay, so and what I do like is the fact that he's got Grant in there. I was going to say, but I never got to mention before. There's still a few question marks on Grant for me. I mean, last year they played with Brandon Smith starting and Grant on the bench and then coming in at some point and then Smith moving to lock. So, I mean, we don't know that's going to happen. Grant may start, and if he does, giddy up for you. But if he doesn't, the upside is at the price Grant is, you could sell him, move Brandon Smith up and bring in another premium second rower. With Jason Tarpany, mate, I love Tarpany. I think he's a great player. But my fear on him, mate, is the Raiders have so many mouths to feed that I got a feeling he's going to average around 42 minutes, around the 40-minute mark. And if you go back to last year and have a look at his stats, you'll see that his minutes were insane. You know, they were literally all over the shop. Martin, I like Martin. He's at a nice price point of a $4.30 price. So I'll just talk about those three on the field, and then I'll get to the bench in a minute. I'll let Timmy talk about those three. But I like Martin outside Cleary, but then again, I still don't think he's going to play the full minutes either. And for me, I like second rowers that play their 80 minutes, you know, like the Anguses and you're paying up for them, but we're paying up for them for a reason.
Yeah, I totally agree. Timmy, what do you think of the starting second row, mate?
Yeah, look, there's three guys who I've had in my team at various stages throughout the off-season. Currently, I've actually only got Liam Martin in my starting second row. The other two, I've gone a bit of a different way, and we can sort of talk about that later on. But when it comes down to spreading the money around and things like that, yeah, it's a viable option. He's obviously got one gun and two that he's hoping are going to increase in money, and that's obviously key at the start of the season.
Yeah, that's right. So go with the bench now, Glenn. What do you want to go through the bench there and talk about?
Yeah,
them?
so he's got Lukey, and I think he's a nice buy. I mean, both the second rowers for the Cows, Nanani or however you say it, and Lukey are both at a nice price point, so they should make money. So I think that's a nice one. I think I'm a little bit scared the fact that you've got two NPRs. I don't think this is the season to be running two NPRs in that position. Second row. If the game's played anyway, the way I think it's going to be this year, second row is a position that in the past that we usually stack. And so I want to see what you've done down below to try and understand what you've done up top. So it might make more sense to me. But at this point in time, mate, I would really look at turning Moeroa into, even if you can, I don't know, you need one more player in there, mate, for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I had Tapai Moeroa in my team for a while as pretty much a place filler. I had him in when Nas wasn't playing and Smith was out. And last week I did everything I could to actually remove him from my team. And I managed to actually move up Targo up there. And I know that centre wings, you want to have them, the jewels in the centre wing position, but my reasoning behind this is it's a lot faster to fatten up a centre wing that's playing centre wing than it is to fatten up a second row, I believe. So I can literally upgrade my fattened up centre wing and move them trade them out and move Targo down and have a nice quality second rower. So I'm normally against that option, but I just don't think. I just think Maroa is. I don't see him actually making the 17 when everyone's back. I actually really struggle to see that.
Say something, Dan. I don't like telling people my team, and this may not be my team come round one, but I'm going to tell you what my second row is, Ben, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I have Angus Crichton, Madison, and Madison I likely won't keep. I've got Tamalalo. My bench is Tino, Katoa, and Targo. So all 6 of mine are playing, and I actually have Bullimore in the front row so that Tino can be moved up into that position. So I don't know if that helps you or hinders you. I also have 2 starting hookers, a gun hooker and a cheap. So I've stacked the pack, but that doesn't mean I'm right. That just means I'm just telling you what I've done, if that helps anyone.
Yeah, I've got a few different players there, and my entire second row, my cheapest is Targo, who's playing. So, sorry, what was that, Tim?
Yeah, just as something a little bit different. I know how he's got Maroa in second row. I myself have gone for Andrew Fafita at the same price up in front row. So if he swapped Fafita for Maroa and moved him up, that obviously strengthens his bench in the front row and might give him a little bit more flexibility with his second row as well.
Just on that, Timmy. So today I didn't have Madison and I didn't have Katoa. I actually had Piakura and I had Fafita. And I swapped down to Madison, who's playing the Eels in round 1, and swapped to Katoa so that I had 2 players there, just so I got depth in that position. I just think with COVID and the way things are, we're really going to need depth this year, and you don't want to blow trades doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right, boys, let's move on to the halves. So on the starting half, we've got Daly Cherry Evans, and on the bench, we have Lachlan Ilias. What do you think of that, Glenn?
Yeah, I like it, mate. I'm a big fan of Daly Cherry Evans. I think also I can just see now looking, he doesn't have Turbo, which means that I have this feeling, a theory, that if Turbo's at low ownership, that DCE is going to be scored more fairer. And I know Supercoach won't like hearing me say that, but, that's just how I feel. Look, I actually like he's got Munster, Hastings, and mate, that setup's good. No complaining on any of you. I can see now where your money's gone with DCE and Munster. I would probably suggest to you that you sell Hastings, move Elias down, put him on the field, and just cop whatever he scores first. Bring in that young Snyder, and there's 300, another 150k that you can invest into your second row, and still have DCE and Munster as your starting halves next round 2.
Yeah, I like the idea of Snyder there. He's really freed up a lot of cash for a lot of us coaches, which is good. Timmy, what do you think of this, mate?
Yeah, look, I've done a very similar plan to what Glenn was just talking about. I had Hastings and I did exactly that. I got rid of him, brought in Snyder, moved Snyder up to halfback, moved Ilias down into reserve 5'8". On a lot of teams seem to be running Harry Grant and Munster. Personally, I think it's too much money in 2 big key positions not to have those guys for round 1. I mean, you can go cheaper option and all of a sudden you're not far off bringing Turbo in. So that's the direction that I've gone myself. I tried to do it with more guns in the halves, and in the end I've just gone with cheaper options in 5'8", and it gives you a lot more freedom around the rest of the field. Yeah,
well, my personal opinion on this is that, I agree with having Munster and Grant on the side there. I think it's just a bit too much. You'll look pretty good round 2. However, I'm looking over here and I can see Tass, Suwali, Munster, Ben Travojevic, Grant, and I think there was one more if I go back one page.
Yeah,
and Fainu and Maroa, that they're not going to play in round 1. So you're going to have about 6 players there not play in that first game, which is going to be a challenge. So you may have to drop down. I'm not sure which one. I think Munster I'd keep, and I'd actually downgrade Grant. I think Munster is probably the best 5'8" in the game. And obviously, Grant is the best hooker in the game, but there's a couple of closer ones out there that actually might keep up with his score. Keep one, and that'll free up some cash to actually fix up some of those. Like you got 2 gun centre wings I can see now with Staggs and Aiken there. potentially you could move maybe an Aiken up to second row and get another cheaper centre wing down there, even Targo up there. And could, because there's so much value in the centre wing at the moment that you could easily get some good players. Even you got Coates there as well. That's a lot of money in your centre wing, I can see. So I can start seeing now where the money is being spent in the halves and the centre wing, which it might be a strategy that works this year, but I think that you're going to have to bite the bullet so you can get more players playing and start building that revenue.
Yeah, I can see what he's trying to do, Dan. And look, I'm going to shoot with you straight, mate. That is a good starting back line and will score points for you well. But in my opinion, so the one I would definitely look at getting rid of is Xavier Coates. That's just my opinion. I still think Xavier Coates will score well this season. But, I mean, I read out his stats last week where he had 6 scores under 20. So his floor is quite terrible. You could take him down to somebody like, I'm not sure, one of those, Pereiras or even a Cobbo or someone that's under that 300 price range.
You got Russell.
Yeah, Russell. That actually would be a better buy, Russell. I agree. Sean Russell. And then you can use that money with the money that you also draw out of Hastings, and you can buy yourself a whole nother second rower and keep Staggs and Aiken. I've had Aiken and Staggs in my centre wings at different times, but there's just so much value at centre wing this year that I've actually adopted 6 bottom dollars, well, not bottom dollars, between 300 and 200K, and then one around the 500K mark.
I've got a very similar strategy there, Glenn, for much the same idea. I've tried to make it so that I've got my centre wing guys that are going to gain in value, or they certainly should, and then use that money to spread around and make sure that I've got 25 guys that essentially, hoping certainly should start round one. Yeah. I think even when you look at Pappenhausen, it's still not set in stone that he's going to be fit to play round one. So all of a sudden you've got a Storm team that's missing 3 of their spine as well. So once you take Harry Grant, Munster and Pappenhausen out, or there's sort of speculation as to certainly perhaps being fit and able to play, I don't know. It's certainly not. It's not a direction that I've headed. I did have Pappenhausen for most of the off season, and I've gone a different direction this week. Still with the knowledge that he may or may not play.
They're 3 of the best in their position. Don't get us wrong. We all think that they're great. The problem is that at the beginning of the season, revenue is really important, and sometimes you've got to earn the right to earn them players. Do you know what I mean? You can't just come out with all guns, because what will happen is you'll start off really well and score really well, but around round 9, you'll start to fade when the other sides that have started to really build cash will gain momentum, where they'll have those players and some. And so really, your team's not far off the mark, mate. I think you've got a really good side. I just make a couple of little tweaks to put a little bit money into those NPRs, and you're on your way.
Yeah, I don't have Coates in my team, but the rest of them minus Tass, I have in my team. So I can't argue with this. I just have them in different places so I can build value in the centre wing. I don't mind this at all. The players are quality. I think Aiken goes up in value. I know Stagg goes up in value. I even think Coates goes up in value, but also Coates has that risky thing where he may even go down in value before he goes up in value. So I think Coates is the weakest link in that centre wing there. So I like the idea of going Coates to Russell, freeing up some cash, and potentially, like I said, moving up Aiken into your second row and get another. You can get someone like a Cobbo right there, another Cobbo, which brings another good value player, or even a Pereira, someone like that might get a start as well. And I'll go with the fullbacks. We won't touch too long on these fullbacks. So James Tedesco and Pappenhausen. Obviously, there's a bit of doubt with Pappenhausen starting, but at that price point, it's an easy swap to really anyone else, I think. What do you think, Glenn?
If those 2 fullbacks start, they'll be in my side, both of them. Pappenhausen is a dead set legend, dead set gun, I meant to say, and the draw. I mean, we all know what Teddy can do, and the draw screams Teddy this season. I think if any serious super coach this season will be starting Tedesco, and then the question is whether or not it's Pappenhausen or Turbo. And for me at the moment, it's Pappenhausen too, based on hope.
Yeah, what do you think, Tim?
Yeah, look, you can't go wrong with Teddy. I've certainly got him in my team. Was one of the first players that I picked. He's a set and forget captain option as well, depending on draw and things like that. Depending on which fullback you want to change it between. But yeah, Teddy was, like I said, one of the first players that I picked, and I think he's pretty close to a must-have. I've actually tipped the Roosters for both the minor premiership and to take out the grand final this year. Boys, I reckon they're going to give that unbeaten games run a bit of a nudge as well, just quietly.
No, they won't. Shut up.
Mate, I can't stand the Roosters. Don't get me wrong. I hate the Roosters, but you just look from one end to the other of the field, like they're just, this season is just going to be their year. As long as they don't have injuries and the retirements and all the other issues that they had last season, if they've got all their squad fit and firing on the park, mate, they are just going to destroy everyone, I can see.
Yeah, well, one of the best things I heard at the start of the week, best news things I heard was that Kiri said he's going to be right for round one. And that just cemented Tedesco in my spot. I still think he would have started with him anyway, I believe. Only because he was playing the Knights. If he was playing a harder team and there was no Kiri there, I wouldn't have had Tedesco. But everything's screaming out Tedesco is going to be probably my captain as well for round one. So
not only that, his starting price is actually the cheapest it's been for 3 seasons, I think. So
it is.
You can't argue with that either.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, you see him and Turbo used to be like neck and neck when it comes to the who's the gun, who's the best, who's the gun, and there's always an argument either side. Now we know it's Turbo, but Tedesco is right behind him still, just a lot cheaper. So I really think he's definitely a goer. And Pappenhausen, I haven't got him in my team at the moment, and it hurts me. I will start if he starts. I will be starting with him. Currently, I've just got Gutho in there at the moment on his early draw and hoping to get some decent scores out of him. But if Pappenhausen starts, that'll be a clean swap straight away. So, anything else you guys want to say on Ben's team?
No, I think he's got pretty close to the mark. If I was to make any suggestion, it would be sell Grant, move Smith up, and maybe bring in someone like a Katoa who gives you a bit more coin somewhere, and get rid of Coates and Hastings for Snyder and Russell, and then that money allows you to take one of those other second rowers again up to another one that's a little bit more like an Angus. I would look at getting an Angus.
First thing I would do, I do agree with getting a better gun in the second row, but the first thing I would do would be to remove Tass, Ben Travojevic out of your team, as well as that Fainu. I think that's the first thing you need to worry about. There's a couple of players there that are nice and lowly priced that will get a start. So that's the first thing I would do, and then look at getting that gun second rower in there. But with the amount of money that you could free up literally by just doing what you said, going to Snyder, downgrading Grant to Katoa, that frees up a lot of cash actually right there to do this. So, but other than that, mate, I'm really happy. I think it's a really good team. Sawali probably won't start. I'll say that now. I probably won't start the season, but I've personally got him in my team, and I think he will be back. I think they're saying early rounds. So I've got him as my starter, just knowing that he's going to be playing hopefully sooner than later. So I don't mind Sawali being there, but I think definitely you need to get those non-players out of there, mate. Timmy?
And just one more thing I wanted to add too, like you've got 7 players that won't start round one. So that is exactly where I would start. But the second thing is that revenue is key, building money. So them spots that aren't getting you points need to be getting you dollars so that you can trade them down at some point and then up to players that you've got in the middle. So you can get to a Toho, you can get to a Garrick, you can get to a Turbo, you can get to a Cleary. Do you know what I mean? So just keep in mind it's about making money early.
Yeah, and there's players out there like Tass and even Ben Travojevic. I know he's a bit injured at the start, but there are these players that may get a run a bit later in the season. But you also need those players to not be in your team later in the season, so you have those downgrade options later on. So you can have downgrade your fattened up centre wing, and actually, if you downgrade that guy to say a Tass later on, if he gets to start, then you free up a heap of cash there again. You're sweet. So you can't have all the cheapies that aren't quite playing and that might play, but you can have a few. So Timmy, what do you think, mate? Anything else?
Yeah, just on Joseph Suwali, I've got him in my team and have had for most of the preseason. There was I think it was a Daily Telegraph article that came out earlier this week saying that he is still a chance for round one. So I'd be keeping an eye on that.
Oh, sounds good to me. I got him there. All right, guys. So that's done with Ben's team there. So thanks a lot, Ben, for sharing your team, mate. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Thanks, guys. We'll have to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll do Cole Bennett's team. Cheers. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we've had some technical issues, so we unfortunately can't get our next guest on. However, we've got his team here. So Cole Bennett, we're going through your team right now. So we'll start with your hookers, mate. We've got Randall and Billy Walters go on the two cheapy hooker option. Glenn, what do you think of that, mate?
Well, again, I won't go on to Randall because we've already mentioned that. I think Walters is a little trappy for me, to be honest. I mean, job security could be an issue. If he does start, yeah, maybe he'll make money. And I mean, that's the objective, isn't it? So, I mean, looking at his side, I think that he's spent money well elsewhere. So I can see the reasons behind it.
Yeah, what do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, look, I'm not convinced that Billy Walters is a trap. Being a Broncos fan and a Broncos member, I think it's going to be his spot to lose. By all reports, he's going to start there. It might not be the starting halves partner that he wanted, but we'll wait and see if Reynolds is fit to play for round one. But yeah, Billy Walters, it's his spot to lose, and I think he actually will go all right. So for me, I don't see it as being a bad option, and especially if he's not banking on him to have to start every week. I think Randall, we know what he's going to do. He'll make his 50 tackles. He'll take some hit-ups. He might get some attacking stats here and there, out of dummy half and things like that. Billy Walters will be much the same. He'll get the odd assist here and there. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad option.
Yeah, and I think the Broncos have a pretty good draw to start with as well. So I think he's got some nice attacking flair. He could definitely get some cash. The only thing I will say is I had the option of starting with a Corey Pakes there. And I obviously had to make some changes. But when I was thinking of going two cheapy hookers, I decided to throw Brandon Smith in my second row because I find that it's one of the riskiest moves you can do is starting with two cheapy hookers. So always have a backup plan. And my backup plan was, and as soon as I heard the news on Brandon Smith being able to play round one, I jumped him in my team. It's since changed since then because Pakes has now been ruled out. But yeah, I reckon you could probably look at potentially looking at getting a dual hooker in the second row that could help cover your butt there, I reckon. So we'll move on to the front row here.
I'll just say really quickly, Dan, I think it depends on what your sort of game plan and what you're trying to get out of each position as well. I mean, if you can save $300,000 or $400,000 there by having two cheaper hookers, and then you can put that $400,000 into better second rowers or better halfback, better 5'8", something along those lines, or a more of a ceiling fullback, and get those points back in a different way. I think the cheap hookers have obviously got the ability then to make the cash. If you're only banking on them trying to score 50 points a week through 50 tackles and some hit ups and whatever else, then I think it's a viable option.
I just don't see Billy Walters being that guy that's going to do the 50 tackles every single week. I think he's the one that is going to probably get a couple of try assists every now and then, and get his scores will probably fluctuate up and down. And you got to remember as well, I know you don't agree with this, but I also think you got Captain Cuts a lot with Kevy Walters will cut every halfback, and I still believe that's going to happen. So there's always a risk there. So I don't mind doing the cheapy option. I think it's fine. But because if he gets cut, worst case scenario, and it gets replaced by, say, an Ezra or even a Tyson Gamble, then you're screwed. That cheapy option did not work for you. You need to have a backup plan. That's all I'm saying there. But yeah, okay, we'll move on to the front row anyway. So we got I actually like this front row. Aiden Fanua-Blake and Tino as the starters. A bit less excited about the bench. You got Oregon Kaufusi and Max King. What do you think of that, Glenn?
I like the two starting front rowers a lot. I mean, I think that if you want to save money, that's the way to do it. I think Aiden Fanua-Blake is every good as, will score you not much less than a Haas. You know what I mean? He's a genuine gun. And I think Tino being given the captaincy this year, he offloads, he tackle busts. I think Tino might shock a few people this year. So I don't mind those two. I think Kaufusi, I think there's too many minutes to share in that bench for Parramatta. I would look at Team List Tuesday and have a real good look at the starting side, the bench, and those that have got to come back into that side. So Kaufusi, you could probably downgrade him to somebody else that's cheaper. But if you want to spend that price point, I'd even consider a James Tanua-Brown at that price point, if that's what you're wanting to do. But yeah, and King, I really like King in the trials. I thought, he'll be a slow burn, but just most of us know that the front row bench spot is a slow burn anyway, and it's usually a spot where I look to save money.
Yeah, I think also Oregon Kafusi has also he's off to the Tigers next year, isn't he? I think it was. Yeah, so I think he's a great pickup. I think he's a great player. Watching him play, I was upset because he wasn't getting very many minutes. I think he's a great player. So it's a good pickup for whatever team gets him. It just depends on how he's used. Timmy, what do you think of this one, mate?
Yeah, look, I can't knock Adam Fanua-Blake. I think he's a great player. I've certainly got him. He's in my starting side. Tino, yeah, look, I can see the appeal. He certainly should gain money. He has a decent floor. He's got the ability to score tries as well. I could see him probably getting 60, 65 points plus each week. Looking at Oregon Kafusi, yeah, look, me personally, I'm not a fan. I guess like what Glenn was saying, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Parramatta forward pack. Me personally, I would save the best part of 90 grand and I'd be going down to Andrew Fafita. You're going to get similar sort of output. Fafita's got that ability to only play 30 minutes and knock out 50 points. He can play at a 1.5 to a 2 sort of points per minute. And I think there's more upside with Andrew Fafita versus Oregon Kafusi.
I just might add that Bullamore's not. I can't remember the price of Bullamore, but I think he's cheaper than that, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 280.
Yeah, mate, go to Bullamore.
Yeah, and with Bullamore, you'll get a few points at the start, in maybe the first 2 or 3 rounds, and then as soon as Olukawate or Schuster come back, and they're saying between round 2 and 4, it all depends on who the edge player drops out for the first one to come back. It could be Bullamore, but either way, he still jags that bench spot and gets you about 30 minutes anyway. So it's still a playing player. With Tino, I was up and down on this guy for a while. I think with the captaincy, him getting the captaincy, I think there might be some more minutes for him there, which I don't see that he's the player that'll actually drop his output by playing more minutes either. I think he's actually a pretty handy little player. And having the dual flexibility, I love as well. But yeah, I actually don't mind the 2 starters. But I reckon, yeah, either Andrew Fafita or Bullamore. I prefer Andrew Fafita because you know what you're going to get with him every single week. Bullamore, there's just a question mark here and there about what's going to happen when all the 80-minute second rowers come back. So, but we'll move on to the second rowers anyway. So nice and potty here, actually. You've got Luciano Leilua, Tupanua from the Roosters, Pat Carrigan, and on the bench we've got Targo, Kelma Tuilagi, and Nat White. What do you think of that, Glenn?
Well, I'm going to have a guess at this and say that he has turbo. I just look at what he's built up the top, and I think this is a side that does have turbo at the bottom. I like Luciano Leilua a lot. We saw what he did in the trial, and last year he's a very consistent player, Luciano Leilua. Patrick Carrigan will tackle his heart out. So those 2 I like a lot. Silly Tupanua, ceiling club, ceiling side, outside Sam Walker, what's not to like? Yeah, those 3 I do. Targo, well, he's the cheapie everyone wants. Tuilagi I like. White, I'm not quite sure what your thinking is for that one, but I've got this feeling by looking at your side that you may have a turbo at the bottom of this.
Yeah, I think when I saw Nat White, I was like, I'm not sure if anyone of you guys have him in your predicted 17 for the Roosters. I don't think I have him in there either. So yeah, I think and I'm not sure about Tuilagi either. I was actually high on him, and then I think I spoke to you, Glenn, and you said you're not sure where if Garner's there. I think Garner gets that spot, and I think Tuilagi is going to be on the bench. And I don't know how many minutes the second rower will get on the bench when you have Luciano on one side and then Garner on the other. So the price point is right. I get that. And he has a lot of attacking upside. You can see he's almost like a mini Luciano with the way he had that upside about him. I just don't know where the minutes come from with him. Timmy, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, look, I totally agree with everything you boys have said. Luciano is in my side. I'm really high on him. I think he's got the attacking flair that a lot of other second rowers don't have. His defence is, let's just say, not as good as others, but he's certainly got the attacking flair in there to get some more attacking points. Tupanua, like what Glenn said, he's playing outside of Sam Walker in a high-ceiling club. I think he can go big this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he has a career year. I think a lot of the Roosters players may possibly have career years this year. Pat Carrigan, yeah, look, there's a fair bit of pressure on him with the Broncos. He obviously had his injury concerns over the last couple of seasons. They're hoping that he's fighting fit and can get plenty of minutes out of him this year. He will do a lot of tackling, that's for sure. He's not the most attacking-minded player, but he should hopefully get 80 minutes or close to it each week. Targo, he's basically a staple in everybody's team at the moment. He's that cheap player that you know is going to start. He's going to get 80 minutes, and you've got the versatility of being able to play in between centre wing and the second row forwards. Tuolangi, much like yourself, Dan, I'm sort of got mixed feelings about him. He seems to be in a lot of people's teams, so there's a lot of people that are expecting him to play big minutes. I guess like what we said with Luciano and with Garner there, I can't see him pushing Garner out. Garner seems to be a bit of a fan favourite and club favourite with the Tigers. So, yeah, I just don't know where he's going to fit. There's not too many teams that keep second rowers on the bench just for giggles. So generally got a rotating hooker or explosive back that they can put in somewhere, and then 2 front rowers or guys that can move around in lock and front row and whatever else. Same thing with Nat White. I can't see him being anywhere near the team myself. I hope for the young guy's sake that he can get his way in there. But if players like him are playing in their 17, then they've obviously got more injuries and retirement concerns than what we seem to be seeing at the moment. So he's a bit of a no for me. Again, he's 205K. You try and move things around, and all of a sudden you can bring Andrew Fafita up into front row for 205, and yeah, he's certainly got a lot more upside than somebody who is distant from the 17 at the moment.
Yeah, with Tuolangi, I think, and I'm guilty of this as well with Andrew Fafita. I think the trial form, what you see with the trials, is got me excited about Fafita. And I think it's the same with Tuolangi. His trial form was amazing. It looks really good. But I just think the Fafita is more of that impact staple from the Sharks on the bench. So I think, and you're also saving about 45 grand as well, almost 50 grand. So I do like that.
The thing with Fafita too, he's had his injuries, but 3 or 4 years ago, he was a guy that just everybody started with. You had him, you had, well, maybe a bit longer than 4 years, but you sort of had him, you had Gallen, you had Corey Parker, and then once those 2 boys moved on, Fafita was still pushing around. But he's had his injury concerns, he's got his knee issues, but he's lost 15 kilos in the off-season, and he reckons he's the fittest he's been in a very long time. So we saw in the trials, he did a lot, does a lot of running. His tackle bus, he runs across field really well, really great at crabbing across the field, but he's a massive big unit, puts his hand out, palms off a few guys. All of a sudden, just with one run across the field, he's got 2, 3, 4 tackle busts, and then adds his 8 metres plus. He's got an offload. He's pretty dangerous, a nice big unit when you're close to the line to pass the ball to him. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to like about him, and I'm really surprised that you don't see him in a lot more teams.
Yeah, I think people are a bit hurt from last time, Glenn.
I would just be cautious on how much we oversell Fafita. As much as I like Fafita, and I do think he looked better, and yes, it's good to see him back in the game, I still think his role in the team will be at 30 minutes at best. So I don't think you see him making a lot of money. The reason people are going there is because he's 205K, and that's a slow burn position. So people are prepared, if you're going to go somewhere cheap, and in my opinion, the front row bench is the place to do it. But I wouldn't be looking to make money or even play Fafita. But, I mean, if he was to get a starting position, start 20, finish 20, that would be great. A 40-minute Fafita I'd like.
And that's exactly right. It comes back to what you're trying to get out of each player in each position.
Yeah.
So if all you're looking for is 40 points out of him so that he doesn't become an AE nightmare like some of these other guys that, like, you look at Moreau, if he comes on for 10 minutes and gets 5 points, you're in big trouble. But Fafita, geez, even in 10 minutes, Fafita can be on 25 points or 30 or something like that. So it's a lot less of a stress concern as long as he can stay on the park, gets his half hour, 40 minutes, whatever he needs to do, get you 40 points and bank it.
Yeah, I agree. And one last thing I'll throw on the second row here is I assume you have Turbo here as well, so your second row is a little bit cheaper. But I think that what you've done there is actually pretty good because I think a lot of people are going Angus Crichton and he's a gun. And if you can't afford him because you're trying to save cash to get Turbo, you need to get a part of that Roosters team. And I think Tupanua is a great option for that. So I really agree with the Tupanua. And I think Tupanua's only way is up as well. I think last year it was a bit interrupted. And I think I think this year he will step up another notch, I reckon. So, all right. So let's move on to the halves, guys. So we got SJ and Schneider in the halves. And then 5'8", we have Kurt Mann and Lachlan Ilias. Glenn, what do you think of the halves, mate?
I'm going to be honest with you out there, Cole. I'm very scared. Very, very scared. So I'm a big Sean Johnson fan, as most of us that love rugby league and love Supercoach have been. Sean Johnson has been a great player in the past, but that Sean Johnson has got groin injury, he's got a knee injury, he's, very likely to pull out just before a game often. The pros are that he's playing in a Warriors side with a really good draw. So, I mean, maybe you can take that risk. I'll be honest, I put him in a couple of times and then I've just looked at it and I thought, I really want some certainty in my starting side, and Sean Johnson doesn't make that. And with Kurt Mann, look, at best, he starts at lock and plays 55, 60 minutes. From what I've seen him, even as a lock, he was a link man more than anything. He didn't really do a lot of running, a few tackles. I think Barnett will start at lock and he'll start at the bench. And if that happens, that's very scary. Mate, I'm going to be honest with you. I'd play Snyder over him. I mean, Snyder looked really good to me. I really like the two on the bench. No arguments with those players. But, I think if you could go up a little bit to a Swarker, Moses, or even someone like that for Johnson, and for Kurt Mann, I don't know if you could go an Amoni, Amon, however you spell it. Although Amon's draw looks pretty scary after the first game too. So I'm not sure if he's got Amon further down, and we'll get to that and have a look. But I'm scared of that half.
Yeah, with this, I see in the halves, I see some upside in SJ, but I also see more downside. It is, if you love SJ, that's great. I love SJ too, but it is going to be a scary ride. I'd be nervous. I'd be like literally biting my nails like I did in the grand final when the Rabbitohs played the Panthers. So I'd be nervous as hell having him in my team. But honestly, even if I don't have him in my team, I'm going to watch him and I'm going to love watching him. I just love him, but I'm so nervous. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, look, boys, again, I can't say too much different to what you guys have. The only thing I would add is between halfback and 5'8", there is some other players around that are similar sort of price point as to Sean Johnson. Like you look at a Dylan Brown, he's obviously only 5'8", not halfback, 5'8" dual. But I'd much rather prefer someone like Dylan Brown than both of those, and then try and move your money around and see what else you can pick up.
Yeah, the option that I can see right now would be to go Kurt Mann to Dylan Brown and SJ to maybe a Hastings. I think that's probably an option that I'd see right now. Without downgrading anyone, I think you can afford that.
And then you'd have to play Snyder and Ilias then in halfback, because Hastings dual or is Hastings dual?
Hastings is dual, okay. Yeah. So yeah. I would literally go Kurt Mann to someone like Dylan Brown. And with Dylan Brown as well, you're going to get solid base. I reckon you'll get more base out of Dylan Brown than you will out of Kurt Mann. I think he's just a freak when it comes to base tag. Yeah. He's a bit of a ball hog, and it's great for Supercoach. And SJ, so yeah, I'd go to Hastings, someone who I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I buy into this not kicking thing. I think he might kick still, unless Brooks takes the kicking, and I don't know. But either way, I still think he's going to be another safe kind of option where he'll probably get you like a 40 floor with a maybe bit of base power attack. But yeah, SJ, honestly, if he goes good, I'm bloody stoked for you. But I'm just nervous on him. All right, guys, let's look at the centre wings. Holy smokes. We got Ruben Garrick, Jack Bird, Ewan Aiken, and Sean Russell as your starters. Then on the bench, you got Selwyn Cobbo, Will Penasini, and Koala from Manly. What do you think of that, Glenn?
Wow. I mean, look, he's obviously hoping that Turbo and Garrick combine like they did last year. Look, I made a statement last week on the post, and I'm going to stick by it. I think a lot of centre wings are overs this season. I think a lot of front rowers are unders. Personally, I don't mind the Turbo-Sloan combination if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to talk you out of that, but I'd certainly reconsider Garrick and Turbo together. I look, that if you was to take that money of Garrick and take it down to someone around the 300K mark that's going to make you money and invest that into those two halves, I think that's not a terrible side. I think that tells me why we're looking at what we looked at above. Yeah, that'd be my only. I don't mind Bird. I don't mind Aiken. I don't mind Russell, Cobbo, Penasini, and Koala's the next in line. And I think with COVID this year, you might see him closer to the team than you think. But Garrick, mate, look, I think you'll have some games where he'll do well, but 760K consistently. Look, you're asking for trouble, in my opinion, to own both. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money that can be lost early.
Yeah, Ruben Garrick, especially with his 2 first games as well. Like he's got Roosters and Panthers, so round 1 and round 2. That's a lot of money away. So I can justify starting with Turbo and him lose $200,000 just knowing he's playing the Bulldogs next. I can't justify losing about $200,000 in the centre wing as well. And if I had Turbo or Garrick, I wouldn't be trading him out for the Bulldogs game. So you're going to lose that money. And everyone knows my thoughts on Garrick. I've been very clear on what I think Garrick's going to be this year. And I watched the trial matches, mate, and I think I'm still right. I'm backing that Garrick will not be the best centre wing. I think Tupou will outscore Garrick from the Roosters. I'm baffled by this. Everyone's got a bit of hype from last year. I'm not trying to be a kind of mean here, mate, but I just don't see. I think you've got so much money there, and your team, if you traded a Garrick out to someone around that 300K mark, your team could be freaking amazing. Because I haven't found many things wrong with your team except for the halves. If you could downgrade Garrick, you would fix every one of the little things that we've been picking at. So,
can I just add something, Dan? I think it's really important that you understand that centre wing is the fastest making position to make money. And there is a lot of money in that position this season. Look, even if you was to sell Garrick and Sloan, that's what I would do. I would turn Sloan to Tedesco, and then I would buy a much cheaper centre wing in that position. I would get rid of Bird as well down to one of those cheapies, so that you've got rid of Garrick and Bird down to 2 cheapies and turn Sloan to Tedesco. And then the rest of that money I'd invest into Man and Sean Johnson. I'd even consider bringing a Money in for Bird, and probably even Sawali or a Nakwama. I'm not sure. I think those two wouldn't be too bad. Even to a friggin' Stags, you got 300K left over nearly.
I get what he's trying to do here. I can look at his team and I can see a mixture of really high ceiling and with Aiken and Bird there with really solid base, and then the rest are cheapies. I can see what he's doing here. But I just think that, like, if you do want to do this and go this route, I would literally go Toto over Garrick.
Yeah.
If you want to go this route, that's fine. It's a strategy. And like we said before, the person who wins Supercoach is not going to do what we did. So if you're going to go this strategy, it could work, but I'd prefer a Toto. What do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say, mate. I'd much rather prefer Toto than Ruben Garrick. If you look at it a different way, you can go Garrick down to Pereira and pocket 500K, and all of a sudden your halves look a lot different. But then you even save some more money. Save some of that and put it into Kula or Koala, whatever his name is, the Manly winger. Turn him into Pereira. Bring in Stags. Bring in he's got Russell. He's got Panasini. Tom Amone would be the other one that Tautau Amone would be the other one I'd be looking at, because I think the cash generation that's there, it's going to make a massive big difference to your team, and use that cash then in your halves. So I'd bring in someone like Dylan Brown, and then all of a sudden you can get just about any other half in the game, just about.
Yeah, well, here's something that I just picked here. If you went, say, Garrick to Pereira, you literally just go SJ to Cleary. That's how much money you have. So I'm saying, like, and that's a solid team right there, having Turbo and Cleary in your team. So and that way you've still got the solid, decent guns in your centre wing with Aiken and Bird. I'm not sure if Bird. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Bird just yet. I love him as a second rower, but if he's playing in the middle, he's going to lose a few minutes and not have that attacking flair that he had last year when he was playing second row. But I still reckon, literally go Garrick to Pereira or anyone around that price, and SJ straight to Cleary.
I think that team will score well early, but I think that team will lose a lot of coin early.
Yeah, so that's one thing I was about to say as well is you've got a lot of good cheapies in there. Like you got your Panasini, your Cobbo, your Russells, your Snyders, your Eliases, and all these guys are going to make you money. But if it doesn't make sense, if they're making you money to lose about $400,000 straight up in round 3 with Garrick and Turbo. So it's like all that good effort in getting those right cheapies has been ruined because you lost the 400,000 in round 3. So but like I said, I'm not talking anyone out of Turbo and Sloan. I think I like Sloan, and
so do I.
I got him. I had him in my team for a bit, and I'm just in and out all the time. It's all got to pick from somewhere. But the money you've got with Garrick is literally Tedesco. You can get Tedesco, and that's what surprises me. Like you got Garrick that is more than Fafita. He's more than Tedesco. I feel like there's and it's Tedesco and Fafita are just safer options as well. So yeah,
but you'd even turn him into Teddy and then bring Sloan up into centre wing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you literally just go, trade out Garrick, put Sloan up there, and then there's Teddy right there. So that's
something you said before, Dan, which was you could turn Sean Johnson to Cleary and Garrick down. That wouldn't be a terrible side. I mean,
no, exactly.
It's potty, it's got points, it's got money. I still think there's a lot to be lost. But geez, if you was to turn Garrick and Sean Johnson into Cleary and Staggs, that's a pretty big strikey side. I just think that there's, like you pointed out, you've got places you'll make money and you've got places you'll lose it. I got a feeling that you'll lose it as quick as you'll make it.
Yeah. Well, before we go, guys, is there anything else you guys want to say on this team?
No, he's got plenty of depth there, which is good. In his forwards, he could certainly adjust things, but he's obviously going for as high a ceiling as he possibly can with his backs. But I think, like we said, he's just got to rejig it and just move it around a little bit. He's got the right logic. He's just got to move it around.
What I'd like to say is just because this is what we think, it doesn't mean that's right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, these are just our opinions, and we're just trying to do our job to give back honest opinions. And everything I say to you is from my genuine, the way I look at it. But that doesn't mean we're right. I mean, that side could absolutely come out and blitz us. And then you could see where you're going to lose your money using your break evens and say, all right, they're right here. Maybe I should sell here and I can upgrade here. So, I mean, it's not totally terrible. I just think that it's not what I would do. Most of the strategies that most proven strategy is build your money fast at centre wing. That's where the most available is, and stack the pack, or at least stack, the prime positions, which is half, second row and fullback.
Yeah, no, like I said before, I think the team that we that wins Supercoach is going to be a bit different to what we all thought. So it's a different strategy. I can see that. But yeah, like I said, there's a few things I'll definitely change in there. But honestly, mate, thanks for sharing your team, and I really appreciate. And it's good for us too. We get to see different perspectives of what other people think as well. And this is a good option for us to even better ourselves, which I think is great as well. So having this different perspective, I think, and like you touched on it before, the depth in this side is pretty bloody good considering he has Turbo and Garrick in there.
Yeah.
You would not think to get this kind of depth. I know you got Koala in there, but yeah, there's some pretty solid depth in here. And it surprises me that you can actually get a Turbo team like that, Turbo and Garrick team like this, and actually have some decent depth. Obviously a few risks there, but what's Supercoach without risk, really? So,
and I like his thinking, Dan. I mean, he's thinking outside the box, and that's what wins Supercoach. I don't agree with Dan's comment that one of our teams isn't the one that'll win it, because I am actually going to win it this season. But that's another argument.
Well, thanks once again, Cole. Thanks for sharing your team, mate. It takes a lot of courage to do so. So thanks heaps, mate, and good luck this season, mate.
Yeah, good luck, Cole and Ben as well. Thank you for sharing your teams, guys. Tim, got anything to add?
No, I think we've summed it up, boys. Thank you very much.
Can I just end the show quickly by saying something as well? Like, we lost a king. We lost a Spin King this week. And like, I actually, it hits me so much that it's almost hard for me to say it without emotion. That's how much it means to me. And so I just want to say out to everyone out there, Shane Warne was one of, he was controversial and he had his moments outside of cricket. But let's just call a spade a spade. He was the best frigging cricketer Australia's ever seen. You know, like I cannot tell you how many times I've watched a game and I'm doing something in the house, and the minute Shane Warne goes on the bowl, everything stops. And I come straight over and I watch his over, and then I go away again and do whatever I'm doing. That's just how good he was.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. Honestly, I woke up and I was like, someone's playing a prank on me. I was distraught. Like I'm a medium pace bowler now, but when I was growing up, I didn't care what a medium pace was. All I wanted to do was bowl leggies, mate. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I even bought the Shane Warne little spin ball.
Me too.
It had where you put your fingers on it. It actually told you how to bowl the flipper and stuff. Still couldn't bowl the flipper, but I honestly, I was so upset that morning. Like, yeah, I was distraught. It was, yeah.
There's only way I can get that kind of spin on the ball is by chucking it. I can't do it the way he did it, and I don't think many can.
No one can, mate. Not one person can.
Yeah, and just to his family and friends out there, we pass on our condolences from Tragics and all of the Supercoach community.
I think the most amazing thing about Warnie is he didn't only affect like cricket players. He affected all Australians. I think it's as a kid you grow up and whether you're a cricket fan or not, you certainly knew who he was and you knew the sort of bloke that he was. He sort of lived life on the edge, but at the same time, he was just an amazing player. He was a smart player, very smart cricketer. You'd see him, he'd walk down the pitch and he'd scratch his chin and he'd have a bit of a think, and you could just see his brain was always working. And I know that we've got our Facebook group and stuff that we were flicking pictures and videos around and things like that. And one of the BBL games where they were talking to him on the mic and they said, how are you going to do this? And what are you going to do here? And he said, oh, he's been in for a while. I'm going to do this, do this, do this. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And he got his wicket straight away. So it was just amazing. He called it exactly and said he knew where the ball was going to go, as much spin as he was going to put on it, knew exactly what was going to happen. And sure enough, he could make it happen. And that was the best thing. He could do it 6 balls out of 6 every over.
And I remember that game. That was to McCullum back then. And, I mean, that was when Lynn and McCullum were the Bash brothers, and they were absolutely carving it. And, he took McCullum's wicket and, like, he called it. And, you know, it was great to see the mind, the thinking, and he backed up what he said. You know, he lived a little bit controversial at times, but he was unapologetically Shane. And that, to me, makes him more admirable.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, bloody legend.
Bloody legend. That's it. Rest in peace, mate. So I was hoping to do that at the end because now I feel a bit of a fool trying to plug our championship ring. However, guys, so feel free, guys, to jump on to our overall group, which is 922904, and you have a chance to win the Supercoach champion ring. And if you want one of those rings for any of your leagues, guys, if you have a 20-man league, just chuck in $5 each. Then grab yourself a championship ring. If you go to supercoachchampion.com and enter the promo code TRAGICS, you get a 5% discount, and they deliver free and fast, guys. Thanks for coming on, guys. Enjoy, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Thanks very much.
See you, Tim. See you, Dan.
Thanks for having me on, boys.
I want to win. I want that trophy. I want that trophy. I want that trophy.